Welcome to the Resound Worship Songwriting Podcast, episode 27. I'm Joel Payne from Resound Worship.
I'm Sam Hargreaves from engageworship.org.
And this is a podcast to equip and inspire grassroots songwriters serving their local church. In this episode, we'll be dissecting the classic song I Will Offer Up My Life, reviewing 2016's 12-song challenge, including the December 2-line challenge, inviting you to join the Song Cycle for 2017, launching our new charity, the Song and Hymn Writers Foundation, and focusing in on inspiration and first draft ideas in the workshop, as well as responding to your tweets, posts, and emails. Happy New Year, Sam.
Happy New Year.
How was your Christmas?
It was good. I was in Sweden, hence I'm singing ABBA.
Lovely. Is that an ABBA song?
Yeah.
Oh.
This is one of those games, isn't it, where I say a song and then you go...
No, I think this is part
Parton?
of your Swedish residency exam. You have to
Yeah,
you have to
it's
know
true.
the entire ABBA repertoire off by
Yeah,
heart.
the IKEA catalogue and
yeah.
how to drive a Volvo. It's true.
Yeah. Did it snow?
No,
Oh.
it's apparently just snowed now we've left, which the kids are a bit disappointed about. But I think I've got early onset middle ageism because I kind of have this thing now that it's actually easier if it doesn't snow.
Oh, I love that you think it's early onset.
Yeah, it's very early. It's very early.
Cool. What have you been up to?
Yeah, well, Christmas, New Year, back at work today, if you can call this work. And yeah, just planning. I'm teaching a 3-day intensive at London School of Theology in multimedia and multisensory worship. So basically, if people want to break out of, worship that's just focused around singing or just focused around one particular way of worshipping, we're going to be thinking about sort of biblically, theologically, but also practically, how do we use images, how do we use technology, how do we use all the senses to engage people in worship. So it's going to be fun.
Cool. That's good. When's that? Did you say that, or did I?
It's the first, no, I don't think, it's the first 3 days of February. So if people are interested, they need to kind of get themselves over to the LST website, or can you put a link to this on our...
Yeah, we'll do it.
On our podcast
I'm
page.
going to write down here, link to
it's
LST intensive.
It's a Wednesday to a Friday, so it's the kind of thing that you might have to take some time off work, or if you work for a church or something, then maybe you can get it as kind of work time. But it's open to anyone. Obviously, there'll be LST students there.
Yeah.
Joel, you type so loud.
Oh, sorry. Do you think
You're
the
like-
listeners will know that?
Yeah, because it's so loud. It's like an 80s film where you're hacking into the Pentagon.
Don't say that. Don't say that. Now they're listening to me at Langley.
Yeah, they just flagged something, didn't they?
They've given up on me. There's also a worship symposium coming up at LST, isn't there?
Yeah, it's in the summer, isn't it?
Yeah.
It looks really, really good.
It does look very good. We'll put a link to that as well. That's like serious academic stuff
Serious
on
stuff.
worship, isn't it? I've been to one of those before. There's one a few years ago, and it's good. So we'll put that on as well.
How about you, Joel?
Well, obviously I've had Christmas and New Year and that sort of thing, which was nice. The big news, I guess, since we last recorded, is we finally got the go-ahead from the Charity Commission for our new charity,
Yay.
which is called the Song and Hymn Writers Foundation. Yes.
Awesome.
So what's happened is we've taken Jubilate, which is the kind of parent company of Resound, and we've flipped it all on its head, and we've made Jubilate into a subsidiary of a bigger charity that goes over the top. And so that charity will cover stuff like our songwriting and publishing, but it's also now going to cover lots of work, this kind of thing that we're already doing, the podcast, the 12-song challenge, the retreats, the workshops. We're going to invest more and more in training, equipping, resourcing songwriters right from the grassroots right up to, like we're talking at the moment, we've got some thoughts about developing a theological course for songwriters. So partnership with other institutions. It's very exciting.
I was at the meeting we had just before Christmas with our new board of trustees, and I must say, you think starting a charity, reorganising structure, does that really make a difference? But the conversations that we were having around that table were just so different, from, previously talking a lot about songwriting royalties and those kinds of things, which are all important, and there is still a publishing arm of what we're doing. But the primary conversation was, how do we resource songwriters? How do we reach new songwriters, hymn writers? What will help? And I just loved it. it was so encouraging to see that, having set up this charity, it's changed the way we're all thinking, and we're now thinking how can we, best serve people.
Yeah, and it gives now an opportunity for people who share our values and our vision to say, actually, we want to stand with you and support you in doing this, because it's not, like we say, it's not about lining anyone's pockets, but we really want to influence the broader scene as well, and say, look, we really believe in a really high quality worship song that's been carefully crafted, that has substance and depth, but that engages your emotions and all those kind of things, and really pursue that. So we're really excited about it. We'll tell you more in the next episode. If you are interested in either getting involved in some of the activities that we're doing, which obviously you are to some extent because you're listening to this, or supporting what we're doing, we'll give you some information about that in the next podcast. We'll have all of that set up. One of the things we are going to do, though, is we're going to have a hymn writing workshop in London on the 6th of May this year. So we're just sorting out the details for that. Noel Trudinick is going to do the musical side of stuff.
Woohoo!
Master Noel, Dr. Noel. Noel he's just extraordinary musician.
He's the man.
Conductor, composer. And Martin Leckerbusch, who is probably the most prolific British hymn writer at the moment, I think, in terms of his output. He's coming to do stuff on text and words. Martin is brilliant. So we're looking forward to the 6th of May. Again, we'll have some booking details for that before long. Worship Songwriting Retreat booking will open on the 18th of January. And we think it will sell out quite quickly. I've already had people get in touch saying, I want my place.
That's great.
So keep an eye out for that. And it's great. We're going to have Geraldine there. I'm going to be there. And Matt Osgood's going to be there. And we're going to be the tutors leading that. And then the other thing is we've been setting up a new song project for this year. So we're not going to tell you a lot about that at the moment, but normally with Resound, we put out about a song a month. We kind of write them as we go, and when they're done, we publish them and so on. There'll be a little bit of that, but we're going to try and collect a load of stuff together and do something that's kind of a crossover between our usual output and a more kind of focused album project, so that we invest a bit more in the recording, so that we theme it and so on. So that's going to be coming out in the middle of the year. It's something we'll be focusing on, and we will share more because we'd love to get you on board and supporting that right from the off. Shall we turn to some correspondence?
Yeah, we've had an email from Helen, who works with Roger Jones and the Christian Music Ministries ministry. And she says, I've listened to your latest podcast. You discuss performance in worship. I've one thought which has come through my experience of working with Christian Music Ministries. You talked a lot about God as the audience for our worship. If we're thinking of a concert model, coming from a moderate charismatic background, I'd like to suggest that for some of our worship services, it's essential that God becomes the performer.
Brilliant.
We can give him space and time in a service to come by his Holy Spirit and do among us whatever it is he wants, whether that's healing, confession, inspiring deeper praise, or even lament and intercession. So often we move from section to section in our services without paying attention to the true worship leader. Music is an incredible tool given to us by God to facilitate this. At CMM, when we're out in usually quite traditional churches teaching on music and worship, we include an element of creative worship. We teach about bringing air holes, it's a nice little phrase, into a song by showing congregations how to improvise over a chord sequence. Once they've got the hang of this, we can take it a step further, inviting a soloist to sing out over this chord sequence what they feel God might be saying for this moment. Music really does facilitate prophecy in an amazing way, e.g. Elisha in 2 Kings 3. That's a cool idea, isn't it?
Yeah, I really like that thought about God as the performer. That's really helpful because that's such an important difference in the dynamic between theatre or a concert, and it reminds us of how if the concert is essentially the band as the performer driving everything, then in a sense the key performer is not doing their thing. I mean, they can be doing their thing through them, can't they? But I totally see that point. I think it's a really good one.
Yeah, and I think she's just, we were talking about the audience, not the audience, but the congregation as the performer as well. And I think we don't want to get away from that. But there's a thing in traditional sort of liturgical worship about worship being a dialogue and God speaking and we respond.
Yeah.
God speak and we respond. And I guess that brings together those two ideas, doesn't it? That we need to give space for God to speak and space for us as the people of God to respond.
Yeah. Cool. Thanks, Helen. We also put out last time our first draft attempt at 10 Commandments and Beatitudes of worship songwriting. And we got a few of you got in touch, a few thoughts. Ali said, is number 5 too similar to number 1? Yes, actually, Ali, it is. It's almost the same. Might need more explanation as to what you mean, but I think both commandments and Beatitudes are good.
Can people see these if they want to?
They're on the show notes for last time, but we'll stick them on again this time.
Yeah, I guess we're going to update them. David said, "Thou shalt not write all verses in the range of a hippo and all the choruses in the range of a chipmunk." It's not a bad idea.
That's quite a good commandment, isn't it? Louis said, "I like the content of both commandments and Beatitudes. Sums up the relationship I have with church generally." That's intriguing, isn't it?
Interesting.
Yeah.
I'd like to know more about that. And Andy said, "I actually wrote both of these up on a sheet of A4 and have it hanging up on my notice board above my desk for occasional glances of inspiration." Brackets, I haven't actually written anything since it went up, so perhaps it needs more glances. The only thing I would point out is perhaps I used the phrase "muck-church" in a negative sense. So I was meaning kind of corporate, every church looks the same. He says perhaps it isn't the clearest way of expressing the point. I know what Sam is getting at. And I mean, to be honest, when I reread them, I thought, actually, I banged these out, just before the last podcast, and I haven't looked at them since. And I think, I think I've got 4 Beatitudes, and it could perhaps do with 1 or 2 more. And maybe that phrase "McChurch" is, if you don't immediately know what it is, it could be improved. But it'd be interesting to know if people, especially for me, on the Beatitudes, if people have got other ideas for Beatitudes that we could add. The idea behind those is that they're the sort of blessed are, they're positive rather than a kind of "you're very negative, Joel, thou shalt not." They're kind of inspirational, and that's the idea.
I also quite like that Andy has stuck up the laws above his desk and now it's completely fruitless. So Andy, I suggest you take them down quickly or something, or you meditate on them. Dissect a classic. This month we're going to look at the classic song "I Will Offer Up My Life" by Matt Redman. So this was written by Matt in 1994. Do you know what? I looked this up, and in several different places I found a different date. So I think I got 1994 from the We Are Worship website. I think they should know.
Because they are worship.
Yeah, they are Anyway, I also found on there a little bit some reflections from Les Moyer, who's this guy he's very much behind what's happened with Kingsway and Matt Redman, Tim Hughes, and so on, and this kind of emerging British worship movement through the 90s and the noughties. And Les said about this song, this is the first song that Matt wrote that really went beyond Soul Survivor and actually the broad church. Matt was really influenced by the Vineyard Church in his early years, and you can hear that same intimacy expressed in the song. There's a sign of maturity in his lyrics, and it's one of the earliest and clearest demonstrations of his worshipper's heart. The song helped give him confidence as a songwriter, especially as it came after Matt had met with Kevin Prosh, an American worship leader who became highly influential in Matt's life. Kevin was able to help Matt see that he had permission to make the music that was in his heart. And that's great. So that's from the We Are Worship website that I got that text. It's really interesting to hear from Les's point of view that this was the song in a sense that made Matt into a national and global songwriter. It was one that was so widely picked up. So I'm going to pick out 1 or 2 things that I think make this work really well. And then Sam, you're going to do so as well, aren't you? I think 2 things I think make it work. And Matt Redman does this a lot, is a really repetitive melody that's simple and quite a steady meter.
Yeah.
There's nothing complicated in there, and then just repeats it again, same melody. And then this device, and we've mentioned it before, when you repeat the same melody 4 times, on the 3rd time you put in the variation. In surrender I must give. It's a lift, it's a highlight, and it gives the whole thing character where it could be boring otherwise. And the other thing I think is it is a really intimate song. It definitely has the feel of intimacy, and I know when I've sung it, it's got that sense of real personal song, singing devotion to God. But actually, when you look through the lyrics, they're almost all drawn from biblical text. Yeah. So it's not just Matt's musings. He's managed to take biblical texts, some of which are intimate psalms, some of which are other things, and put them in a package which makes it intimate. And I think that's a great lesson that in order for a song to be devotional, personal, heartfelt, and other things, that doesn't mean it just has to pour straight out of your own head. Yeah. Actually, you can research and you can draw on other stuff and still create a song that does that. I think that's partly why this is such an enduring and powerful song.
One of the things that really struck me looking at it again was the focus on the whole life as worship. So he talks about, I will offer up my life, must give my every part, my words could not tell, my words are not enough. And what he's basically saying is that worship in spirit and truth is not just about singing. Yes, there is a big singing element to what he does, and to even part of this song. What can I sing to you? But he's also saying that we need to give our whole lives to God as worship, and that's a theme that is in this really early song. It also returns. It's obviously there in his maybe most famous song, "The Heart of Worship." And it's there in his recent album. There's this song Unbroken Praise, which is the title track of his recent album, and it has this line, "So let my deeds outrun my words, and let my life outweigh my songs." And I think it's really strong that all the way through his sort of songwriting career, he's been emphasising, yes, we come and sing to God in worship in church, but also we're going to go out and offer our whole lives to God. That's the worship that God is seeking.
Yeah.
And the other thing is this double meaning of what can I give? In the chorus, a repetition, what can I give? What can I bring? To me, that's always meant, what can I possibly give? What could I give to you, God? But it's also meant, actually, God, show me what can I give? Help me to see what I can give. And I'm wondering whether that kind of depth, it is very simple, very, primary chords, simple melody, but as you say, it's very biblical, and it also has this kind of lyrical, almost cleverness that gives it that enduring thing. So, 23 years later or whatever, we're still singing it because it's not just surface level, I guess.
Yeah. And do you know what, as well? It has a range of 7 notes.
Wow.
And that is the Ruth Goddard range.
It fits the Ruth Goddard test.
Yeah, it does. It's got a range of 7 notes. Can we improve it? If Matt had brought it along... I've got to say, I looked through this and I just thought, this is excellent. Yeah. This is a really, it's so lyrically rich. It's singable. It's engaging. It's got that range. That's still the only thing. So I did pick out one thing, but that was just in order just to be difficult. Is this idea of bringing a sacrifice of a broken heart? Mm-hmm. And I wonder with that whether that is a bit of Matt speaking and saying, actually, I'm a person with a broken heart. I've had a difficult life, and this is all I can bring as a sacrifice. Yeah. Or whether it's implying that what God requires of us is a broken heart. And I just struggle a little bit with that theologically, because we have it in songs. God says, what's the sacrifice you require? A broken and contrite spirit. And I think that's quite different to a broken heart. Uh-huh. Broken and contrite spirit is about humility. Okay. Whereas a broken heart is more about suffering. And I'm not sure that's the bit I would want to be a bit careful with, this idea of broken heart. Sometimes I remember once actually Matt put into a song, "Father, break our hearts, raise our hands," or change, or something like that. And we had a theologian who came and looked at it and he said, actually, God's the healer of broken hearts, not the breaker of hearts. And I think that's an important point. Yeah,
I think you could be right, and I think it's when we're borrowing from that kind of Hollywoody romancy language, isn't it? To sort of say something that sounds a little bit like a pop song. I suspect he didn't have any of that in his mind, but possibly. I really struggled to find anything to improve. I think if I came to it, I'd probably add more chords, and I'd probably make the melody more complicated, and I'd probably ruin it. So it's hard to critique, really. I think it's nice to have a simple song, but as you say, with that lyrical depth. And I'm going to say I don't have any critique.
Oh, brilliant.
It's a
first. That's great. Well done. Oh, well, that's excellent. Well done, Mr. Redman. You'll be pleased to hear Sam doesn't have any critique.
Yeah.
12 Song Challenge. We have reached the end of the 12 Song Challenge. If you're just tuning in to the podcast for the first time, just to recap, we spent the last 12 months writing a song a month with a community of songwriters around the world who've been listening to the podcast. We put out an idea, some parameters, limitations, theme, whatever it might be, and we'd all have a go. And the idea was not really to try and write 12 brilliant songs. It was just to get writing. Yeah. So it's all about starting some stuff each month and see where it goes and so on. And we're going to look back at the December challenge in a moment. But first of all, we just asked a bunch of you, what's your experience of the 12-song challenge been? And we got lots of feedback, so we thought we'd read a few of these. It's really fascinating to hear how you've done. We haven't got time to read all of them, but I picked out a few. So Rebecca says, I really enjoyed the whole 12-song experience. I managed to do 8 of the 12 songs. Well done, Rebecca. You're in the sort of the top echelons there. The challenge now, though, is to actually finish some of them off using the feedback from the forum and get them into a state where they might possibly be introduced into church. This is another whole area I find tricky, though. I'm torn between feeling that if God has helped me write these songs, then perhaps we should be using them. But at the same time, they're obviously not of an equal quality to the worship songs we already sing, and I don't want my church to feel obliged to use them. As a result, very few of my songs ever go further than the 4 walls of my house.
That's interesting, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
I it's helpful that she's been so honest about it. I think there's 2 sides to that. One is that we should be happy to write a song and just sing it to God ourselves and be, confident that, okay, I've written this song and God is pleased and I've done my best. But also in terms of sharing it with your church, I don't think it's worth trying to compare yourself with Graham Kendrick and say, well, is this good enough? Is this as good as The Servant King? And if it's not, then my church shouldn't use it. Because there's something special about a song coming from your community. And that doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be, whatever we mean by as good as a Matt Redman song or a, Geraldine Latty song. So I would just encourage Rebecca to think, actually, yes, we could sing a Matt Redman song, but the songs that Rebecca's writing should be reflecting that community, and so they've got a value within that community, and I don't think she should hold back from at least sharing them. I like her humility in saying, I don't want people to feel obliged, but actually to say, well, look, here's some of my songs, use them if you want to, and not to hold back from that, because I think that's otherwise there's a danger of over humility and not sharing the gift that we've been given.
Yeah, cool. Well, Phil said, I loved having a deadline to meet. It really did motivate me so much that I got so busy writing that I was unable to make time to finish the last few challenges. My health issues put me under too much pressure. I had to prioritise.
Trish says, I signed up because there was a need for someone to facilitate worship music at my church. There wasn't anyone else at the time, and I knew I needed to help. This came just when it was needed. Being with the challenge has given me confidence to try and have felt nurtured even when the outcome hasn't been polished. I just counted the songs I wrote over the last year, including the ones where I collaborated with others, and there are 30 from 0 to 30 in 1 year. Well done, Trish.
Isn't that brilliant? Trish has done a song every month. She's one of the few, which doesn't include us, who actually completed the challenge. So well done, Trish.
Yeah,
Dan
nice
says
one.
the challenges were great in terms of helping us think through not just how to write songs, but also why. But trying to write a song that met so many specifications at once within a time limit just made it too much for me. The one I've got in mind, which defeated me, was the church song, within a certain range, singable, says something meaningful about church. Maybe there were more. I maybe could have managed 1 or 2 of those, or maybe 1 a month. I wonder whether there could be a couch to 5K version.
Excellent. I like that. Well, maybe that's what what we're doing this year. James said, being new to worship songwriting, it gave me a really useful forum to share and get feedback, which I found to be consistently positive, valuable and well thought out critique. All in all, fab. A really great idea, well delivered. I only wish I'd had a bit more time, energy to do more. Well, there's always this year, James. Yeah,
Marcus says, as one who merely dipped his toe in the water of the 12-song challenge, I found the challenges good, varied and inspiring, if a little difficult to keep up with. Had the potential to dominate my songwriting time, and I didn't fully engage with it because I didn't want to be distracted from writing other normal songs that I felt inspired or compelled to write. The online system I found quite hard to engage with. I find constructive criticism or comments quite hard if not done face-to-face.
Yeah. I think that's a really good point, and we've found this, haven't we, Joel, with the general Resound writing group, is that actually when we've just done the online forum, you get to the point where you just hate everyone because you don't see the look in their eye when they're going, this is really good, Joel, but...
The look of love and compassion and kindness.
Yeah. And I think that's, I hope that is why, doing things that you're already planning, like, more retreats and more days could help with that. But I guess the other thing to say to people if they're involved with this is to try and get together with some people as well. The online forum is always going to be a bit of a blunt instrument, so do be wary of just getting your feedback from the online forum. Shelley said, I found it hard to ask others to critique my songs and give constructive criticism, as I find most people are reluctant to point out negative things, but I need people to do that in order to improve. That's what I found so refreshing about this group. We're all able to give constructive feedback as we're all in the same boat.
And then finally, Fiona said, I'm really proud. I managed to stick something on the forum every month, give or take a couple of days. I used to write 1 or 2 songs a year, and they usually weren't about Jesus. During the first half of the year, that monthly challenges gave me a refreshing break from studying chemistry, writing my master's thesis, and perhaps came a bit of a procrastination task when I should have been doing those things. In August, I had throat surgery to remove a suspicious lump on my thyroid, which turned out to be cancer. This diagnosis put plans of moving to a new city to start a PhD on hold for a few months, and I suddenly found myself back at home with my parents, with very little to do, while I had further surgery and radiotherapy. Praise God that despite there being significant risk, there was no damage done to my vocal cords. Singing in church is one of my favourite ways to learn to worship. The monthly challenges gave me something to work towards at a time when I was sitting around waiting for doctors to make things happen, and encouraged me to play piano, sing when I really didn't feel like it. Thank you, Joel and Sam, for all the work you put into the podcast and the challenge this year. It made a real difference to what has been a difficult year, and I learned so much about songwriting for the church. I pray everyone would know God's blessing in these last days of 2016 and on into 2017.
Wowzers. Thank you for sharing that, Fiona. That is so encouraging, and we're so pleased to hear not only that this has been helpful, but more importantly that you're getting better and you're growing not only in your health but in your songwriting. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah, thanks, Fiona. That's great. Sam, what would be your broad reflections on the 12-song challenge across the year?
I have loved just the push to get something done. I think I often overthink my songs. I often think, oh, is this if it's not going to be the next biggest and most amazing cool thing, then I put it to one side. And with this, I was kind of freed up to go, I'm just going to get something out. And actually I think it's resulted in 2 or 3 things that have been really finished and kind of I've put out there. But I'm also really happy that there are songs that I just had to go out and put on the forum, and so that to me has been the most helpful thing, in just having those challenges and not feeling that pressure to make everything perfect.
I agree with all those things. I agree with the sense of there being some of the challenges which actually inspired me, and others that didn't really. By and large, I had a go anyway. A couple of months I didn't do so well. It's quite difficult. And that's the other thing I discovered. It is even though it's like a song a month, and you could just kind of sit down for an hour a month or something and just have a go at something, even that feels like quite an effort. But I also appreciated that sense of effort. It was a discipline, and there's something about the discipline which says I'm not doing this in a sense for sort of the immediate outcome. But I'm doing it because of what I'm going to develop and what I'm going to gain from it. So I think. And I'm a bit of a sort of, I suppose, a bit of kind of geeky. I like the ones with the really tight parameters that set really difficult. They're quite difficult. And I think you quite like the ones which give you free artistic expression.
But I would also say to everyone, who's listening to this, if we ever do these things and you think, oh, there's too many parameters there, we're not going to come around your house and tell you off. Feel free to just say, actually, I'm going to ignore 3 of these parameters and only focus on 1. That's totally fine as well.
Sam, what would you say is your favourite of the 12 songs that you wrote in the year, or that you attempted?
Well, I mean, we put out my Christ Was Raised song on Resound, so in terms of something getting finished, probably that one. But in terms of the process, I really enjoyed writing the Advent song, and I think that was mostly because of the feedback. So people like Trish and you, Gavin, Mel, Alan, fed back just really helpful stuff on the forum, and it really strengthened the song. I've changed it a lot. I think I'm going to try and work on it for next year's, so it comes out in time for Advent next year. Or at least it's available and ready for me to use. So I think just that process was really helpful and enjoyable.
Cool.
How about you, Joel?
Well, I mean, you've put me on the spot, obviously. The one that sticks out for me, I think, is the community song.
Oh yeah.
Where I wrote In This Community of Grace, and where the orphan finds a family, the wanderer finds a place, and stands out for me because it feels quite personal, I think, because I wrote it and followed the rules of the challenge quite carefully.
Yeah.
We set quite strict parameters, but I reflected a lot on my church kind of home group pastorate and what it had been like over the last couple of years and what it was to be a community. And I found in there all sorts of things which were biblical, godly principles at work in our life. And I wrote it out of that. So that really stands out to me. I'm sort of trying to get it completely pinned down because I want to be able to use it at church.
Yeah.
And I just need to get there. I would love to use it this Sunday, actually, because we're starting a new series on community. So, yeah, that's a little challenge for me to get done. But I think that's the one that stands out. 12-song challenge. Yeah, let's have a look at the December challenge. This is where we set 2 lines. We called it the 2-line challenge, which is potentially where we just said, look, here's a couple of lines from songs that we've been working on but never really gone anywhere. You have them. Make them part of write something around them and see what you can come up with. Let's quickly remind you how they went. Sam, how did yours go?
Open our eyes to a world of need. Open our hearts with your generosity.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Mine went like this. We give glory, honor and praise to the Saviour, the King of all grace. So that's what we put out there. Do you want to hear? I made a little we didn't get a lot for this. Now,
it was
a
Christmas.
very good challenge. It was Christmas, wasn't it? It was busy. But the ones we did get, I've put a little mashup of them so we can just hear the different ways that people approach them.
Saints above, and with all creation's voices join in song. We give glory, honor and praise to the Savior, King of all grace. For your love did not turn away in those times when each of us strayed. You are faithful.
Jesus Christ was crucified so we could gain eternal life. Believe in His great love for us, shown by His death upon the cross. We give glory, honor, and praise to the Savior, the King of all grace.
Creator, the King of all kings, the Lamb who sits on the throne. His name is Jesus. We give glory, honor and praise to the Savior, the King of all grace. And to you our voices we raise and worship you here. Blessing and honor, glory and power unto your name, unto your name.
Wow, some good ones there.
Yeah.
Makes me a bit nervous about sharing mine, to be honest.
I really out of those ones. I really liked. The first one was Trish, and I love it when Trish shares a song. I assume it's a ukulele or classical guitar or something.
Sounds lovely, doesn't it?
And it's just this lovely sort of folky sound. I could never hope to mimic it. And then the last one, I liked the way that Andy actually used it as a pre-chorus. The glory, honor, and praise, save the King of all grace. Do 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 do. It felt like a really good, like he'd carried it on and in a really good shape. It was nice. Sam, what did you do?
Well, when we were at that songwriting thing, you and I, Joel, in November,
Yes.
we were listening to Ian Archer talk, and one of the things he said was, sort of breaking out of ruts and things is, if you never write a song with the same chord progression throughout, why not try it? And so
he did, didn't he? Yeah.
with this, I thought, because actually,
He
this
said that's
is
a really contemporary sound. Actually, it's really,
yeah,
isn't it,
and,
at the moment? People
And
do
I
that.
think that musicians, we will tend to sort of use different chord changes as almost, okay, this is how we're going to bring interest. So I set myself the challenge of just using your chord progression.
Nice.
And then trying to write sort of different melodies.
Tricky. Okay.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if it was tricky or just a cop out. But and then thematically, I'm leading worship on Sunday, and the theme is 1 Chronicles 29, which is when David is praying and basically dedicating the temple, but saying, how can we give back to you when actually everything comes from your hand, God, and it's all a gift.
Yeah.
So I kind of thought that fitted with your kind of the King of all grace. It's all from God, and
Cool.
So that's kind of I don't know. See how we go. We give glory, honor, and praise to the Savior, the King of all grace. Yes, we've come together today to thank you, Lord. Every perfect gift comes from you. You provide, forgive, and renew. Now we long to give you your due and thank you, Lord. Yours, Lord, is the greatness and power. Yours, Lord, is the glory and fame. Yours, Lord, are the earth and the heavens. So we rejoice to praise your glorious name. Verse 3. Who can praise as your glory demands? All we have comes straight from your hands. Still by grace alone we can stand and thank you, Lord. Yours, Lord, is the greatness and power. Yours, Lord, is the glory and fame. Yours, Lord, are the earth and the heavens. So we rejoice to praise your glorious name. We rejoice to praise your glorious name.
Hey! Wow! This is such a fun challenge. I wish we'd done this one earlier and got more people involved, because it is so cool hearing what people do.
Yeah.
When you offer a couple of lines and see where they take it. That's really good.
Oh,
I really
fun.
like that. And I love... I had nothing like that in mind at all when I was writing those words.
Oh, that's fun.
Isn't that funny? But
Yeah.
the idea of the King of Grace, and it's all the stuff he's given, and that, I think it works. Sam, I think that's a winner.
You can slap it up on the lyrics up on the podcast page.
I will
people
do,
can see, 'cause
yeah.
my diction is probably not perfect.
Yeah, I think I really like it. I suppose having listened to Andy's one that we just heard, I loved the way he lifted the melody in the third line when he was repeating that thing.
yeah.
And that would be the thing I'd suggest.
Well, I guess I was sort of intentionally trying to keep it simple, but I can see that you might want to take it somewhere different in the third
Just
line.
a little, yeah. But it was, and it worked as well. Keeping the chord progression. I think that was a nice idea, and singing "Yours, Lord." It's catchy. I think that's got legs.
Did you see your initial thing as the chorus, or did you see it as a verse?
It was initially a chorus. Yeah,
Okay, yeah, because I thought that was in your head,
yeah.
and I sort of
I'm going to mess with
intentionally
his head.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay. Do you want me to show you what I've done with yours? It's not quite as extensive. I'll do.
I think mine was harder to.
Yours was terribly hard. So, I went something like this. Open. I could not help but slightly delay some of the notes in it to try and make them fit in. But you'll see what I mean. Open our eyes to a world of need. Open our hands with a generosity, so that we may show the world the Father's love. Open our
hearts to the pain we see. Open our ears to the cries of those in need, so that we may show the world the Father's love.
I'm afraid that's as far as I got.
That's
So
really good,
that was
though.
the chorus for me.
Yeah.
I'd sort of developed it into a chorus, and then I wanted to start writing a verse, but it just I got so bogged down. It sounded like a sort of a. Actually, this is what I did. I can't remember the tune now, but very much so. You could do it slightly faster, probably. Actually, now I've sung it. The world of Father's love. There are people on the streets, boats of refugees, people struggling to eat, global powers full of greed. There are those without a home, people suffering alone. That's as far as I got. I didn't think it worked very well, but
I think that chorusy thing you've done works really well, and I really like when you go to chord 1 in a place that I wouldn't have done. And then you go
yeah.
I really like that. That I wouldn't have done that, but that
Cool.
worked really well.
Well, I might
just
I
read
might
the words of the chorus to us.
open our eyes to a world of need. You'll spot there's a thing I need to change. Open our eyes to a world of need. Open our hands with your generosity, so that we may show the world a Father's love. Open our hearts to the pain we see. Open our ears to the cries of those in need, so that we may show the world a Father's love. Clearly, I've ended 2 lines with need, but that's as far as I got.
Yeah. No, I mean I think it does work really well. I'm not sure with what you had for the verse. I think listing
Please ignore
bad
the verse.
things in the world is a sort of it's something I've noticed a lot of LST students doing when I used to do songwriting classes with them on a regular basis. And I think it doesn't actually grab you when you just hear a whole list of
no, it
problems.
doesn't, does it?
So I think what you need is something a little bit more evocative there.
Yeah.
Or something more God-focused, because actually you've already opened up, open our eyes to
Yeah.
the pain of the world. So does the verse need to be more actually about this is God's heart,
Yeah.
and therefore open our eyes?
This is what God sees. This is what God does. This is God's
Yeah.
heart. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is God hears the cries and so on.
And it
That'd be
makes
quite cool.
it makes it more of a worship song and less sort of heal the world.
It does. It's really hard not to end up sort of writing a protest song or something, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, we can discuss another time about how you combine protest songs with the worship songs. I'm sure there is a good way, probably, of doing it.
12-song challenge.
That's it. That's the end of the 12-song challenge.
Oh.
Well done, everybody. A very, very small handful, I think possibly only 2 people, managed a song a month. Sam, you and I think, managed about 10 out of 12, maybe even 11.
I definitely didn't manage 11, but
You didn't. No, yeah. So that's that. So I hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you for those of you who fed back. Thank you to those who talked about the kind of the highs and lows of it and how it went. Certainly for me, I did it for me as much as anyone else, if I'm really honest. It was a way of just writing some stuff. And at least one of the songs has come out of that and is now on the Resound website, so I'm thrilled about that. You've had the same experience, Sam, so that's been good for us. It's been a good thing to do. This is our moment then to introduce what we're going to do for 2017.
da, 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 da.
We're going to do something called the song cycle.
Song cycle, everybody do the song cycle. Write that song.
So it bears of the passing resemblance to the 12-song challenge. But the key difference is that instead of writing 1 song a month, we're going to do it in terms. Now, if you're listening outside the UK and you're used to semesters, then we have 3 terms a year. Autumn, spring and summer. That's how we divide up our years around school holidays. And they're essentially kind of sort of 3-month blocks, give or take. It tends to work out as. And it's a song cycle, because what we're going to try and do is 3 times through the year is actually go from initial inspiration right through to a complete song, giving ourselves a good 3.5 months to do it. and it's something we can work on together. We'll have a forum again. We'll talk about it on the podcasts, and Sam and I will share how we're working on things. We would love you to be involved again this time, so it takes some of the pressure off. Those of you who said, I couldn't keep going, it was too much, it was relentless. This is a little more sedate, a little bit more considered and thoughtful. And it's an opportunity to actually really hone and finish something. So you get to the end of it. This time, instead of having had lots of ideas, being able to say, yes, actually, I've written 3 complete songs by the end of the year. That's the plan. We're going to begin it from the beginning of January, or from now, so just after the beginning of January. And let me outline for you what the song cycle is going to look like.
Song cycle, everybody do the song cycle. Write that song.
So the plan is that in month 1, we have 3 things we try to achieve. The first is inspiration. The second is ideas or first drafts. And the third is narrowing down. So I'll explain those in a bit more detail in a moment. Then in month 2, we move on to research, as where you may study or read or pray or listen to other stuff. To actually really writing, working hard, putting in the graft of just writing on that particular song, and sharing it with other writers and other people, and getting feedback and bouncing your drafts around with different people. Then in month 3 is where we come into really finally refining it, which is to test your song. So find a congregation, a band, a small group, and try it out with them as a worship activity, and then refine it based on that and the last little bits you need to fix, and then about how we present the song, so whether it's a recording or transcribing or teaching it or sharing it and so on. That is the plan for the song cycle. Sam, how does that sound?
I think it sounds really good. I think we've had the feedback, haven't we? The people said, the 12 song challenge was great for getting the ideas down, but what I missed was the opportunity to actually hone them and respond to the feedback in a good way. So the idea with this is that we actually give ourselves enough time not only to get an idea down, but also to follow it through to completion.
Okay. So the first thing we're going to do in month 1 is inspiration. And this is just about getting inspired. It's not about writing a song. And so Sam and I have just come up with a few ideas for ways you could do that. And I'm going to list a few, and then Sam's got a few ideas. We're not going to spend a long time commenting on them, but it's how can we actually go out looking for inspiration. Mine are a bit more churchy, and Sam's are a bit more arty, which is good. So my first idea is look ahead to what's coming up in your church calendar. E.g. a preaching series, or if you follow the lectionary, or an event or something in the life of your church. Remember to leave a good delay, because it's going to take you a few months to write the song.
Yeah.
So that's one way of inspiration. Just look and see what's coming up. What might we need a song on in 6 months' time, whatever it might be. The next is actually to look backwards through your recent services and worship, and what was the song you were looking for that you couldn't find? You tried to find. I'd find this a lot. I just want a song that says this or says that or does this, and
it's a gap area,
and often
isn't
can't
it?
find it. Yeah, and it often highlights a gap area. Whereas rather than it being, oh, you know what, there aren't enough songs on, you actually say, what did I actually need a song on?
Yeah.
And then chances are you're going to need it again. My third idea is to meditate on a verse or passage of scripture. You could do this every day, and one way you do this, you just take a simple verse and you just meditate on every word in it, and that means just kind of repeating the word a few times, thinking around that word, praying around that word. Then you move on to the next one. It's a form of meditation.
If people find that hard to do just in their head, I quite often do that on longhand on paper. So I'll take a verse and I'll write it out, in the middle of a bit of A4, and then actually do kind of like a sort of brainstorm off those words. So kind of,
oh, nice, yeah.
So actually fill a sheet of A4 or a couple of sheets with doing it longhand, because I find just in my head, my brain just kind of wanders.
Yeah, brilliant. Another idea is if you're the sort of person who makes notes when you listen to sermons, maybe you're not, but some people do. Instead of sort of writing notes on the sermon, why not write songwriting note ideas as you listen to a sermon being preached? Every time a line comes up, either it's a good, think, oh, that's a great line, I could put that in a song, or I could write a song about this. Just be thinking songwriting as you listen to the to the sermons being preached. And then finally, mine is that it's just, commit to a daily Bible reading where your prayer and reflection, again, includes, you think, songwriting. So read a bit of the scriptures every day. And yeah, sure, pray about it and think about applying it to life as well. But maybe to say, I'm going to write songwriting notes. And that is a song on this, a few ideas for a few key lines, or that kind of thing. Make that part of your discipline.
Those are great, yeah. I've just got hold of this book called The Artist's Way, which was also mentioned at the songwriting event we went to last year by Maggie Dawn and by Ian Archer. And it's by Julia Cameron, and I've kind of heard of it before, and I've heard of the idea, particularly of it's called Morning Pages. But I just never read the book before, and it kind of surprised me because apparently it's been around for 25 years, and it's inspired people like Pete Townsend from The Who and Alicia Keys and all sorts of people. And she is basically she would call herself, I think, sort of spiritual rather than necessarily evangelical Christian. So you have to kind of come at it with that kind of open eyes. But one of the things she talks about is this morning pages idea, which is basically to first thing in the morning, ideally, just to write 3 pages of, some people call it automatic writing. Some people might think of it as journaling, or I kind of interpret it as a kind of written out prayer in the morning. But the idea is not to write a song or to be necessarily particularly creative initially, but just to process what's going on in your mind, in your heart, just to get it out there. There is a sense of kind of prayer and meditation about it. There's also a sense of getting over a sort of artist block where often we feel, it's so hard just to make a mark on the page. It's so hard when there's a blank page or a whole song to be written or whatever. And just to kind of start yourself off. And then as you look back, you might spot themes, you might spot lines that you could, it might just be as you're writing, suddenly you get inspired. And I've got to say, this is something I'm going to try. I did it this morning for the first time in the way that she describes. And I guess it could be a way that people, and I know I put something out on Facebook yesterday saying, has anyone else done this? And immediately 2 people got back to me and said, yeah, I found this really helpful. Someone was particularly talking about, getting ideas for songwriting from it. So it's called Morning Pages, and if people are interested, it's in the book The Artist's Way. The other thing she describes is something called an artist date, which might sound a little bit more odd, but this is basically she sort of describes the inner artist in you as like you need to have a relationship with your inner artist, which some people might struggle with that idea, but it's maybe just a thought experiment to do. And actually you need to kind of, just as like any relationship with a spouse or a loved one, you have to give it quality time. You also need to have quality time with your artistic side. And so she says, once a week, plan time which is just for you to do something that kind of fills your tank creatively. So that might be going to see a really good film, or watching something on TV that is really inspiring to you, or listening to some music that really kind of fires you up, or reading something, or just going for a walk in a field. Or it doesn't have to be expensive. And she also, the phrase that she used in the book, which I really like, she says it's about mystery, not mastery. Let me try and find the actual thing. Here you go. Think delight, think fun. Do not think duty. Do not think what you should do. Spiritual sit-ups like reading a dull but recommended critical text. Do what intrigues you. Explore what interests you. Think mystery, not mastery. And I guess, for me and you, Joel, we're quite the sort of people, we'll read a commentary or a Bible book or something like that. And I guess there's this other side of the creative process, which is about being inspired, about kind of being woken up to the amazing things around us. And so, this idea of maybe an artist day or filling your creative tank, maybe that's another way that people can get inspired.
It's brilliant. Good stuff. So that's the inspiration. The idea is there, it's not focused really, is it? It's just, it's finding different ways to get inspiration. The next part of the process in the first month is first ideas. And the idea here is that you start writing a bunch of songs. So you don't just kind of pick one, but you take various bits of inspiration and you just have a go and see where they go. And you might write a chorus or a verse or a couple of lines or whatever it might be. So it's just some thoughts there on how do you, I mean, we talk about this kind of thing a lot, I guess, but how do you just get started on a song? And I've just come up with a few suggestions, and then Sam's got some as well. The first is that you just look through, say, a Bible text, and you look for the key phrase. What is it? What's the key phrase in that text? Or maybe in your kind of musings, you've come up with the key phrase. And you say, okay, that's going to be, in a sense, my landing line, which is either going to be the first line of my chorus or the last line of my chorus or something like that. And that's where you start trying to build it. Rather than trying to think, okay, how should the song start? You think, okay, I'm going to build something around my most important phrase, and that's your starting point. So you come up with a way of doing that. The second is, we mentioned this when we were reviewing Everyone Needs Compassion about this time last year, that Reuben Morgan said for that one, he just he stood up, he held his guitar, he imagined the congregation in front of him, and he started playing some chords just to set a mood that matched the theme of what he wanted to do. And there's an idea. So literally at your piano or your guitar, imagine the congregation is in front of you. Close your eyes. Get in the physical posture you would use for leading worship, and just start playing. And play something which sets a mood, and then begin to, as you establish something there, then begin to write some melody and lyrics over the top of it. A third one is that you write, and I would sort of recommend this often for songs, is you write a summary statement for the whole song. So you say, okay, this is in a very short sentence, this is what my song says. So God is faithful, we depend on him. That could be your summary statement or something like that. And then take that statement and try and expand it into a kind of a longer form, into a 4-line verse or an 8-line verse or something like that. So you're taking an initial statement, and then your text, you just try and write it as text perhaps, is just saying that, but saying it more expansively and exploring it. So you're very much kind of holding it within that thought. And then the final thing is, we did this on the songwriting retreat last year. It was a really good exercise, and maybe I'll flesh it out a bit more at some point. And that is, pick your theme, and then try to is to pick your rhyming words first. Okay. So basically to say, okay, I want couplets of rhyming words, and those words have to all be absolutely related to the theme. So rather than I just try to find rhymes, so it's just you kind of almost, you could just read the rhyming words and you'd know what the song was about, and then work backwards and build some lyrics and a verse around those from your ending words. So there you go. There's a few ideas just of how you kind of get started on something.
Yeah, I mean, I would just add musical things. Just find one chord progression that you loop around. So I think often we can spend hours trying to find just the perfect chords, but just hit on 3 or 4 chords, even 1 or 2, 2 chords if you like. Either set them, going on a recording, or just play them over and over again, and then improvise melodies over, using some of the phrases that you've written down, or some of those things that Joel has talked about. You can do the same thing as well over a beat or a rhythm. Sometimes if you're getting a bit stale, and you think, oh gosh, I always play the same tempo or the same kind of groove, find a drum machine, or find a keyboard, or a loop on a computer or something, and jam over a different kind of rhythm, and that could bring out new ideas. And the other thing that Geraldine Latty says, and I think we've mentioned this before, but I would really encourage people to think about at this stage, is turn the edit button off. Just get these ideas out. Just kind of let it splurge. You're never going to hit on the best idea. Very unlikely that you'll hit on the best idea in the first 5 minutes. Maybe even the first time you sit down to do it, you might do half an hour, 20 minutes, an hour, splurging out ideas. And actually, it's okay just to get those out. And often, if you're maybe recording those, you might want to go back and listen, and you might spot things later. Or it might be, that your first sitting, actually, you produce nothing. But then when you come back to it the day later, you've learned so much from that first sitting that actually, now hang on, now it's flowing. So, don't be too harsh on yourself in this stage. This is very much a kind of throwing things at the wall and seeing what happens kind of stage.
Yeah, absolutely. And the idea is that at the end of this stage, you've got probably the beginnings of 4 or 5 different songs.
Yeah.
Sometimes you might find you've written 3 verses and a chorus, and that's great. And for something else, you've just got a few lines and so on. And what we want to suggest then is that so you draw on different bits of inspiration, you have a go at a bunch of different songs, and then you share all of them. And the forum address, if you want to join in on there, which would be a really valuable way of doing it, is songcycle.resoundworship.org. What we're going to do is we're going to keep the old 12 song challenge forum, so you don't have to re-register and so on. You can use your old login, but it will just transform a bit, and it will now be at the site songcycle.resoundworship.org. If you can't remember it and you go to 12songs.resoundworship.org, that will also find your way there. And what you do is you just post up a few of your ideas and just get a bit of feedback. And when you read other people's and listen to other people's, you can say, oh, I really like this, not sure about that, that works well, that doesn't. And by drawing in that kind of feedback, and also share it with your friends, share it with people in your church, whatever, just try out different things on them and get a bit of a sense of, by the end of the month is that you get some inspiration, you have some first ideas, you share them. You've narrowed it down to say, do you know what, now I know this is the song I'm going to work on. So I've narrowed it down and this is the one that's really got legs from what I'm doing.
And ideally, we're giving ourselves a month for this. So I would say ideally, give yourself, time in week 1 to do your inspiration, maybe some time in week 2 to do, give yourself the time. Don't wait till the end of January if you can to do this. Spend the time, and then maybe the last week in January you can be doing your narrowing down. But we're giving breathing space in this challenge, I think.
So all that remains for me to do is to introduce our featured song, which this time is O Faithful Lord, written by Mark Bradford. I just got a couple of notes from Mark on writing this song. He says, this song draws its origins from the time of the illness and death of my dad. Singing and making music before the Lord became a particularly important expression of worship for me at a time when I was largely unable to process exactly how I was feeling. And yet there were very few songs that resounded with how I was feeling. Often it wasn't the lyrics that were the problem, but the tone or the mood of the song that just didn't resonate. While sitting at the piano with these kinds of thoughts in mind one day, this song began to emerge. It sought to express a confidence in God, albeit a confidence expressed in brokenness rather than in triumph, yet a confidence determinedly holding on to the promises of God, not least the ultimate promise that one day God will make all things new. And the second, third and fourth verses were written first and came together relatively straightforwardly, though with lots of tinkering on the way. The first verse was the struggle, and the writing of it encapsulated the move I had to make from seeing it as my song, coming out of my particular experience, to one that hopefully can be sung by others within their own contexts of brokenness, past, present or future. So we're really delighted to share this new song with you by Mark Bradford. It's O Faithful Lord. Do get in touch with us with your questions and comments via facebook.com/resoundworship.org, Twitter @resoundworship, or email podcast@resoundworship.org. Until next time, bye-bye.
Bye.
O faithful Lord, my solid ground, when storms are raging all around, your mighty cross, your precious blood will keep me safe within the flood. Nothing in all this world I know can separate me from your love, so I will cling to being found, my life secure within your hand. veil. Lord, I shall fear no evil there, for you are with me, whispering still your peace in times of trial and ill. My boldest hope shall still remain. To live is Christ, to die is gain. Until the end I'll walk your ways. Oh, hold me in my darkened days. When you appear, all storms shall fade, and there will dawn a brighter day.